Hey guys, Dr. Frank here, the founder of Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching Programs. And in today's brief video, I want to take a moment and I want to talk about the hardest part about quitting smoking weed. Now, for those of you guys who haven't watched my other videos, I was addicted to weed from the ages of about 23 up until about 28. I also struggled with nicotine addiction for 9 years, binge drinking, and energy drink addiction, ironically enough. And Addiction Mindset and myself is a company that's dedicated to helping people quit these addictions. And be sure to subscribe and follow for content. I drop a video every day talking about overcoming these addictions. If you want help with it, free content for you guys. And if you want more one-on-one help, visit our Addiction Mindset website for a free PDF on quitting these things. It's a 75-page PDF. Or you can call our offices and work with me one-on-one for a small fee. So in today's video, I want to talk about quitting weed and the hardest part about quitting weed. This is one of the most common reasons people call our offices when it comes to quitting an addiction. And weed is a really unique one. And I guess you could say the same thing about nicotine too. A lot of the things that I'm going to say in this video about weed, but we're gonna keep the focus on quitting weed. So when it comes to an addiction to weed, you usually have the addiction and then you have the dependence on it. And when you have an addiction, the biggest fear when it comes to quitting is the withdrawals. And when it comes to quitting weed, and now this is assuming you're smoking weed or THC and not black market carts, not super high concentration THC products, because those things are going to be a bit different and those are going to be a bit more addicting. But if we're talking about just weed, if we're talking about just quitting weed, the withdrawals from weed, the physical dependence, the mental addiction, the physical addiction, however you want to word it, actually isn't that strong. It's really not that bad. Usually when people quit, they go through some insomnia, they might have some appetite changes, they'll have some temporary mood changes, things that can all be pretty readily coped with or dealt with when we're talking about a weed addiction. It's not like coming off of opioids or heroin or cocaine or even nicotine. Nicotine, in my opinion, is much harder to quit than marijuana because the physical withdrawals just aren't that bad. It's not. You give it 3 or 4 days after quitting, and most people really usually start to feel pretty good. The most challenging thing about quitting weed is the mindset that surrounds weed and seeing through the images and the realization that maybe weed isn't for you. It's realizing that weed might not be a good thing for you anymore. And why is that so hard? I think like most people, when I first got addicted to weed, it was a fun thing to do. Like I was with friends, we would smoke on the weekends throughout college, whatever. And it was fun. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed smoking weed. I didn't really have any complaints. And I would argue maybe even in the beginning, it might have not all been a bad thing for me because I was binge drinking a lot. I was doing other stuff. And weed really helped me to stop doing all that stuff. I think at least it distracted me from all of that other stuff. And at the time, especially while I was in college, so I'm 31 now, back when I was 23, 24, there's all types of positivity surrounding weed and the use of weed. Weed is really marketed as a lifestyle drug. We don't market heroin or fentanyl or opioids as part of a healthy lifestyle drug, but weed is often promoted as part of a healthy lifestyle. Weed is often promoted as a drug that a lot of successful people use, whether that's influencers or celebrities. It's the imagery surrounding weed and the lifestyle is very convincing, and it's extremely enticing. And I think anyone that smokes weed or that's maybe addicted to weed, if you're watching this video, you might have this image or this romantic type of image that you're living that healthy lifestyle, that you're that stoner lifestyle, but you're going to school, you work a job, you're making some money, you got a good relationship, whatever it is, and weed is just part of that. Now, there was a point for me throughout my addiction to weed that what I was experiencing in life, what I was going through in life, didn't match that healthy lifestyle. My motivation was going downhill. My physical health was going downhill. My mental health was going downhill. And if you looked at my life from a bird's eye view, from an outside view, you could pretty easily look and say, this is not going well for Frank. This is not going well for this guy. And, you know, I'd be on Instagram, social media, whatever, and I would just see this promotion of weed. And this came around the same time where you were seeing the big medical advancements in weed and its ability to help people, its ability to help people with stomach problems, PTSD, anxiety, depression, ADHD, whatever it is. And there's a lot of medical benefits to marijuana. Don't get me wrong. There are tons of medical benefits to marijuana, and I'm all for that. The problem was I wasn't experiencing any of those benefits. Like any drug, like any substance, there's benefits and then there's disadvantages. And when the disadvantages or the negatives start to outweigh the benefits, you have to take into consideration if this substance is really serving you any good. And when it comes to weed, not only do you have to figure that out, but then you have to get past all of the lifestyle stuff, all of the lifestyle promotion and popularity that surrounds the use of weed. And that's a really, really hard mindset to break. I think that mindset and coming to that realization that this is a substance that's no longer serving you a purpose, especially if you're suffering from physical symptoms now. Maybe you have Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome where you can't stop vomiting in the morning and you're losing weight. Maybe you're starting to experience really bad anxiety or panic attacks. Maybe you're starting to experience psychosis or depersonalization from smoking. I think it's really, really hard to accept and move on with the idea that weed might be the cause of all these problems, not the solution to all these problems. Because we hear from so many people that weed is a solution to these things, and less nowadays do we hear about the potential negatives to smoking weed, and they do exist. Weed, on a side note, is a biphasic drug. It's a biphasic substance. It has a biphasic effect. So at too low of an amount, it's not going to do anything. At just the right amount, it might help. And then once we use too much, it can have the opposite effects. It can make the anxiety worse. It can make the depersonalization worse. It can make the stomach problems worse. It can make the health problems worse. So realizing that and accepting that you might be at a place in life where the negatives are outweighing the benefits is really, really, really hard. And I call it in the PDF, the free PDF, which I put the link to our website below for it, on quitting. I talk a lot about that. It's the lies that addictive voice in our head is telling us. Hey, you need this because. Hey, you should be using this because. I feel really bad for people with ADHD. They're often told, oh, you have ADHD, you're more prone to nicotine addiction, you're more prone to THC or weed addiction. And the reality of that comment is, so these people then believe that, and yes, it's true, but people with depression are more prone to substance abuse. People with anxiety are more prone to substance use. People with trauma are more prone to substance use. Just like people with ADHD are more prone to substance use. So I think it's really sad that we put that message out there as almost a justification for a substance, because if we took a population of people, I think we would find that almost someone is suffering from one of those things. And to allow those things to be used as a justification for use, if the use is having more negatives than benefits, then it makes it all the harder for that person to accept quitting, because they're constantly being told, no, you're prone to this is something that you need, when it's not true. In most cases, it's not true. Not to say that weed is maybe even a better alternative, or CBD is maybe a better alternative than ADHD medications, which I think are rough medications in my opinion. Not to say that's all bad, but I think you get my point. I don't think that should justify use if the negatives are outweighing the benefits, and sadly, I think that's a message that gets commonly promoted. So how do you start to break that mindset of weed as a lifestyle drug, weed as part of a happy, healthy lifestyle. I think you have to look at your current lifestyle and see where you currently are in life and ask yourself, is your reality different from the reality that's being painted by that influencer, by that celebrity, by that person of status? Is this working for you? It might be working for someone else, but it might not be working for you. And once you can accept that mindset, once you can accept that this isn't really the good old days of smoking that you maybe had with your friends where it was fun, I think quitting becomes a lot easier. And I sincerely mean that, because the physical withdrawals, the physical dependence, it's not that bad with weed. It's just not. It's a lot more with nicotine, in my opinion, or other drugs. The other thing I'll say, and I have other videos on this, so be sure to check those videos out, is that I'm talking about weed in this video. Black market carts, black market THC products, edibles, that's a whole different story. The withdrawals, the dependence, especially if you're getting synthetic marijuana, spice, K2, whatever it may be, that's a whole different story, and I have a whole host of other videos on those topics. So I hope that helps. I would recommend, if you enjoyed this video, check out and join me on the next video. I put it right above there on why I quit smoking carts, especially if you're having a problem with cart addiction, and then follow the rabbit hole on my YouTube channel and all my videos about carts. But hopefully that helps you guys with the mindset and changing that mindset. And last thing, I'll actually say this. There's other ways that you can be healthy that don't involve weed. Exercise, nutrition, a good night's sleep, all the normal stuff that you hear. It really does work. It really does help a lot. So don't think that weed is your only solution to a healthy lifestyle, because that's not true. And I think sometimes it's really hard to accept that and to see that. So join me in the next video, guys, on how to why I quit smoking carts, at least.